All right, let's go ahead and move over now to optimizing our process a little bit. And this really comes down to our enterprise data management solution. Enterprise data management is baked right into Windows Explorer. You use it just like you use regular Windows Explorer, but it layers on all the benefits of revision control, history tracking, check-in and check-out, as well as the ability to have the files automatically brought to your local computer as you go ahead and open them from the vault. Well, in SolidWorks 2015, we've added some tremendous new capabilities, and I'm going to go ahead and show these here in just a second. But I want to talk about each of these. SolidWorks Treehouse is a way for us to predefine assembly structures or interrogate an existing assembly, frankly. There's some great functionality in both of those. There's new quick info icons, columns that are going to show up inside of your Windows Explorer Vault view, not just in your SolidWorks tab. It gives you details and feedback about the status of the file, whether it's the latest version, older, newer, or frankly, whether it's not cached locally, which is a great new function based on this version column. There's also a new private state visibility, and you'll see this in the demonstration. It has to do with when multiple people are putting files in the vault, or at least working in their local vault view, and it gives people with the proper permissions the ability to see the fact that there are files created in another person's computer that are not yet checked into the vault. So that's a tremendous increase to be able to see the visibility of what could potentially be a conflict, especially when duplicate naming is controlled within your vault. Now, on the topic of duplicate naming, you're also going to see where files going into the vault will give us some feedback, not just say that they're a duplicate, but also tell us exactly where those are. And then a bit where the interface with our copy tree, move tree operation, as well as our Windows Explorer Vault view have changed visually. And then some predefined notes that you can have, version comments, and any type of workflow transition, whether it's an automatic transition or manual. We'll go ahead and see each of these live. And lastly, I'm going to finish up here with the new web client. So for those of you who are clamoring to have access outside of the building proper or without a VPN, any device, Windows, Linux, Unix, it's all web browser independent at this point. So you can use your smartphones or your tablets as well. So let's go ahead and run into that really quick here. So when we've got these product structures predefined, what we can do is actually use this new tool. It's actually an old tool. It's part of our SolidWorks Labs capabilities, but it's a new tool called Treehouse. Treehouse allows us to go ahead and predefine by dragging assemblies and parts and structuring them together. Now, these are based on property templates, so the properties are the same as they would be as you're starting a brand new SolidWorks file. We're going to name the assembly power pack, and then we're going to go ahead and name a part predefined here as the connector. Once again, they're based on templates, so inputting things like your description, your material, any of the information you want for your company standards can be adhered to. We can also go ahead and set up the configurations at this time. Add configuration names, and then we can even go ahead and determine exactly what part configuration this particular part needs to be. Now, each of these need drawings as well. So by dragging a drawing over to the part and assembly, we can predefine the pack in order to have a blank but ready drawing file waiting to be filled out. Existing parts can be added to this as well. We can drag and drop those directly from Windows Explorer. When you go ahead and drag these parts over and drop them in the proper structure, you even get a thumbnail right away of each of these. Not only can we put them in that way, but we can also determine a quantity at this point as well. When we go ahead and export this assembly back out to SolidWorks, you'll see on the right-hand side here in our Vault view that as the structure is generated, the new files will be added to our Vault. So here it goes on the right-hand side. You'll see this populate here right now. Okay. So if you do have a top-level manager that wants to go ahead and pre-design these or predefine these, then this can be doled out to the proper user. If you take a look at the connector part, we've got some tabs already in there as we showed, and the third pin configuration is our pre-configured active one. If we look at the check-in dialog, you can see that the parts and the drawings and the assemblies are properly structured as well. So the drawings are aware of the assemblies and parts they're related to. We're going to go ahead and log in as a different user real quick here. I want to show you this from two different sides. So when we take a look at this assembly that we're going to deal with, we actually have to add this power pack to this assembly. Now, we could do this with a traditional method, and first we have to check it out because in data management we need to have write access to this. Instead of using things like insert components, which would be a traditional method, we can actually use Treehouse to accomplish this as well. So over here we're going to throw Treehouse on the left, and then from the right-hand side Recent Files menu, we're just going to drag this existing open assembly into the Treehouse. What it will then do is show you exactly how the assemblies, sub-assemblies, and subparts and assemblies are all physically structured. So from an interrogation tool, I think it's fantastic even just for that. So here let's go ahead and put in an assembly and a part, much like we did in the standalone mode. We're going to call these, though, Power Pack and Connector, the same name as the other parts and assemblies that we generated in Treehouse previously to this. So the vault is set up right now to prevent duplicate file naming, which is an important thing for this. When we go ahead to save this file back into the tree, you'll actually see now that when we export it, the existing open assembly is now going to show the connector and the Power Pack in the SolidWorks tree. So without ever having to close and reopen that file, we get that change. Lower right-hand corner, it's also telling us, hey, there's duplicate files in here. You've got some names in this assembly that somebody else is working on that haven't been checked in. Now this used to be hard to find, but now we have a duplicate file naming box that tells us exactly where the conflicting file happens to be. So we can either do renames if necessary, or go ahead and either use the existing files or go ahead and rename the design that we're working on. It was really a difficult thing to figure out before. So we can't check those files in. Let's just do an undo checkout here. This is going to flush our assembly back to the original version. So within its tree now, it's going to get rid of the connector and that top level assembly. Now we have a version column that actually shows us the details based on icons here in the Windows Explorer view, not just in the SolidWorks view. We still have those two files within the vault. If we try to check them in, it's going to give us a nice error message, but this also has a link to the duplicate parts file naming box. Now this can be a really bad situation when multiple people are doing things, but files haven't been checked in yet. They're just saving them in their local vault view. Previously we had no idea that those files existed until they were checked in, but now we have this new private state. This will let people that have the permission turned on actually see the files that are on individual users' computers before they're checked in. So we can head off these problems before they become big problems. We've changed the Windows Explorer interface a bit as well to make things more clear. Do you see that we get thumbnail previews for all parts and assemblies on the left-hand side, even in the Contains tab? And the Bill of Materials tab is much more tabular. There's some really simple column and row separations, and again, previews for each of the CAD files there. When we compare, we don't just highlight the entire row anymore. We can actually see that the individual properties or the thing that changed within each of these parts is actually flagged, not just the entire file arbitrarily. When we do a top copy tree, we've added some new information in this as well. It's a better table style, easier to deal with. But what we also see is a settings area at the top, and we could do things like including simulation data, but more importantly, close this area when we're done with it so that we don't take up valuable screen space. We've separated the destination path and file name into separate columns. There was a lot of issues with people changing paths, but then accidentally changing file names as well. This will completely prevent that. And then we have a filter that allows us to look through this tree and simply use wildcards or just typing in names to separate or filter down to things. In this case, we're looking for a part called hip. Easy to do. We also have a very highly requested tool similar to Copy Tree called Move Tree. Now Move Tree will allow us to take a project structure and move it from one area of the vault to another. Before that was quite a manual and very tedious process to make that happen. This one will make it very simple and in a very, very quick manner. Finds the references and changes them all for you automatically. We're going to submit this assembly for approval. When we do transitions, there are several ways to do this, and we have one called parallel transition. That means really a committee is going to go ahead and approve this, so we have to have multiple people here. So here we're going to go ahead and put these in. Now in SolidWorks 2014, EPDM 2014, it would overwrite the previous approver when the second and other subsequent approvers would have to do that. So we're going to go back in now as a different user here and continue this process so that we can see the effect of multiple users. Now we have the ability to actually map the variable of the individual approvers in chronological order. So now you can see at the bottom here the history shows a previous approver already there, And now Ian logged in is going to approve this as the second person. And then once the second approval happens, this will automatically trigger the state change. And this is really how those parallel approvals show. But here we've mapped the properties to the data card, and we can see very plainly who actually approved it and when they approved it, and really in what order as well. The way this happens in the admin tool under our actions is that we're mapping the approvers to a property or a variable. The version comments can also be much more colorful here. We've got some names that are going to inject based on who did what and what date. We used to not have any type of comment on an automatic transition, which really didn't, leave your history looking very tidy. Here we're approving multiple, and if we map these people from both the approver 1 and the approver 2, then they can go ahead and approve it in any order, and they will simply show up in the property in the order in which they approved. Once again, revision comments here on this automatic transition, and that'll make our tree view much more pleasant. We're just going to run this through a couple of more workflow transitions just so we can generate a few more revisions for this. So now when we look at get version, we're going to see all the comments, which again are very, very valuable to the right-hand side there, even the ones that were automatic. So the dates are injected and the user logged in at the time automatically input. History on the right-hand side no longer has blanks based on automatic transitions. There are comments made for everything, whether it's a manual process or automatic. And now when we roll back, we can also put a reason why. There's a new web client now I mentioned before. The web client itself is basically browser independent, which is the most important part of it. You can look at it on a smartphone, any tablet, iPad, iPhone, or Android. When you log into the Vault view, you can go ahead and look at the different structure that we've got. And as you select things like our assembly, you'll get all the feedback and information. Data card simply accessible. You can also drill down and get other information like the contains and the where used. And if you are remote and you want to use this file, you simply check it out, download it, make your changes, and then upload it back in. You can even participate in workflow state changes here or from your smartphone. Down at the bottom, if we click mobile version, you can look at it differently on a smartphone, which might be a little bit more pleasant interface. A little bigger, a little easier to click. It's going to go ahead and just be a more pleasant experience on an iPhone. So great new interface changes for EPDM. This is not an additional purchase. Web 2.0 is part of your existing Enterprise PDM licenses. It's just a matter of grabbing the proper download, and usually it's a reseller-assisted installation. So if you are interested in this, get a hold of Decide Solutions through tech support and just simply initiate the process with your salesperson if you'd like, and we'll get to that as to how to either instruct you to do the Web 2.0 upgrade, or we can come by and work out a time to be on site for you. So last couple of things I want to run through here are going to be just basic SolidWorks functionality again. Let's go in.